Hello everyone, welcome back to Coding with Mock. And in this video, we're just gonna have a quick look at creating a Maven project in IntelliJ and what it does to our project. Okay? Real quick, real simple. Now let's create a new project in IntelliJ. And we're going to be choosing a Maven project. Now we used to be, or you probably are used to creating a Java project, but in this video, we're going to create a Maven project. Now, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is this create from archetype. Now, archetypes in Maven are a kind of project templates. Now, what templates bring to the table are default configurations, default dependencies, and some default code that will be added to your project. Now, in order to understand how Maven works, I suggest you forget about archetypes just for now, okay? The thing is, if you're a junior developer or a beginning developer, you don't want to be looking for stuff you don't understand, which is doing things in your project which you do not expect. And that's what archetypes will do to your project. They'll become very handy later on when you understand what certain libraries and certain default settings will do with your project. But for now, because you're watching this video, you probably don't really know what Maven is, and you will probably not know what all the dependencies and libraries do that will come with certain archetypes. So for now, ignore archetypes and do not create a Maven project with archetypes for now, okay? I'll just click the next button and we should be greeted with a familiar site where IntelliJ is asking us to create a project or to define a project name and a location where our project will be stored. And let's just call it Maven test, just to test out what Maven does. Now, because this is a Maven project, you'll see that this has a little thingy here called artifact coordinates, which you can open up. And this is the important bit. Every Maven library, framework, project, we call them artifacts. And every artifact needs to be identified in a unique way. The way that Maven does this, or asks us to define and identify our projects, is with these three coordinates, namely a group ID, an artifact ID, and a version. Combined, these three combined will create what we call a unique identifier for our project. Now, the group ID, as you can see below here, is the name of the artifact group, usually a company domain, and that's also what it usually will be. If you're working with your employer, and let's say that employer is Google, then usually your group ID for your project will be com.google, because that's the domain name. That's the real way domain names are organized. This is the top level. The com is top level, and then this is your company, right? Now, in my case, I usually call my projects or group, I choose the group ID Infernal Whale, because that's my moniker, my avatar that I use on the internet. Anyway, oh, Infern. Little typo there. Anyway, now within your company, you want a unique identifier for your project, usually. That's where the artifact ID comes in. So this is the company name or the company domain name. This is your project name, which should be unique within your company. Okay, and then every version of your artifact or every version of your application will have its own version number. Okay, that's also something that will become important later. Now, just for now, we'll just start with version 1.0.0. And this is one of the default versioning schemes. Not every application uses this scheme, but this is one of the more common ones where this is the major updates, this is the kind of medium updates, and minor updates or bug fixes. Then this number gets incremented. Okay, not really important how you number or how you use your versioning scheme, but these three combined are important to Maven. For now, what they're called is not really important, just as long as the combination of the three is unique for your artifact, okay? Or for your application. Let's just click finish, and let's see what happens when I create this application or this project. Now, the first thing you'll notice is probably, let me just shut my Windows Defender up. Thank you. The first thing you'll notice is that I get this XML file. Now, if you're not familiar with XML, I'll post a link to W3 School's resource where you can read up about XML. But XML should kind of look familiar to you if you're familiar with HTML, and XML is kind of a subset of HTML. It's just a way of organizing data. Now, what is this file or what's open here? The thing that has been automatically opened is this file. It's the pom.xml file. It's the project object model. And basically what this file does is it describes everything about your project to Maven. Okay? Everything that we need to tell Maven about our project, and we'll look into what we can tell Maven about our project in later videos. But everything that we want to tell Maven we'll need to add in our pom.xml file. Okay. Now the first thing I'm going to add here is I'm going to tell Maven that I want to use Java 11 for my project. Now, by default, Maven uses Java 5. Why? I don't know. Don't ask me. I didn't program it. I didn't configure it. But by default, it uses Java 5. And you'll see that if I created a project now and try or created some code now and try to run it, it wouldn't run because I'm compiling it with a Java 11 compiler, and then Maven tries to run it on a Java 5 virtual machine. So what we need to do is we need to tell Maven that we're using version 11. Now, we do that with a properties tag. Now, and in that tag, we're going to be adding a Maven compiler source. And here we're saying we're using our source code will be compiled with Java 11. And for some reason, we need to also add a target, and that needs to be the same. Now there is a newer version, a newer tag called java.version, and I'm not really sure how this one works. I'm not quite familiar yet with it, and I'm not going to work with it at the moment. I'm going to look into it, and then if I find that this is more useful or easier to use, then I'll edit this video and you'll see the new version pop up on the channel. Anyway, so with this properties or these two properties, I'm telling I'm telling Maven that I'm using Java 11 for my project. Okay, this should be familiar to you. This is my group ID, artifact ID, and version ID, or version. These are the coordinates I filled in when we created our project. So every pom.xml should have a section with these three identifiers or coordinates inside of them. Okay. Now that's the pom.xml, and we'll dive deeper into the pom.xml when we're working with JDBC. I could go into a really theoretical expose about the pom.xml, but that's not the idea of this video. Now, the other thing, there's two more things I want to show you in this video, and then we should be fine. Now, the first thing I want to show you is the SRC folder. Okay, these two folders are, well, hold on. This file and this folder are from IntelliJ. So if you're using Eclipse, you'll probably have a folder called .settings. That's a perfectly normal Eclipse folder. This is and it holds some settings about how your IDE looks and where you have positioned your windows. This is the configuration of your project in IntelliJ. They don't have anything to do with Maven. They should even be there if you create a normal Java project. Okay, so we're just gonna ignore these two for the moment. The SRC folder, probably you're gonna be saying, oh, well, yeah, I know the SRC folder. That's the same from a normal Java project. Yes and no. Well, we also have a normal SRC directory in a normal Java application or a normal Java project. But if we open up this folder, you'll see that we have two subfolders or two subdirectories here, one main and one test. And the thing is, these are not there in a normal Java project. These are specific for Maven. Maven wants us to organize our files. And this is one of the great things about Maven, is that it really enforces some rules about some rules about how you organize your files within your application. Okay. Now, let's see what we have in our main folder and our main directory and our test directory. We have a Java folder here, a resources folder, and I have another Java folder in my test directory or test folder. Okay. Now, what do these two folders mean? Now, basically, when we're programming or creating our application, we'll be doing that in our main directory. Okay. Now, something you might not know yet, but when you're creating an application, you usually from time to time will run your application or run a main to test some things out. Now, there's also an automated way to do those things, and we call them unit testing or automated unit testing. And you might be hearing about, or you might have heard about, integration testing and end-to-end testing. All of those terms or all of those words all have to do with automated testing, where you write some code that tests other code in an automated way. Basically, what you're not really going to test the code, but you're going to test the behavior of some code, and you're going to be what you're doing is you're inputting, or you provide your unit test with some input and the expected output of a method or from a class or whatever. And if the input and the expected output method match up, then you're saying, okay, then it's probably programmed in the right way. But because we can do it in an automated way, we can provide them with a lot of data and check check it in an automated way. We don't have to actually do things ourselves every time, because if you create or add a little bit of code, you should be testing your whole application. But that's for another video. That's automated testing, and you'll find all of those programs or all of that code in your test folder. Why do we have a separate folder for that? Well, it tells Maven that all of the classes here, they need to be compiled for the test phase before creating the project or creating the executable of our project, but they don't need to be added once we're done testing. Once we're done testing, everything in this test folder will from then on be ignored by Maven. Well, if the tests are successful. because then Maven knows, okay, these are the automated tests, and once everything is tested, our user or the server where we want to deploy our application doesn't need those tests, because once our user has the code, in normal circumstances, that code doesn't change anymore. Okay? It is part of our project life management. So anyway, so in our main here, we'll have a Java folder, and this is where we will be creating our source code or Java code. And we'll also have a resources folder. Now in this directory or this folder, we will be keeping all the files that do not need to be compiled. You might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, what does not need to be compiled? Well, if you're creating a web page, or if you're creating an application with a user interface, you might be using images, or you might be using video, or you might have some configuration files, or you might have some output files that you already want there to be in place. Those files do not need to be compiled, but they are part of your project. All those files will be in your resources folder. All the Java files, all the files that need to be compiled, will be in your Java folder. Okay, so if I want to create a hello world, let's do a hello world, I will be doing that in our source main Java. Now, our source main Java, this is going to be my class path. So I do not want to just start coding here. I want to create first a package, because coding in the default package is bad. So let's create a default package here, or a base package. Not a default package, a base package. And in my base package, let's create a main. And in my main, I'll just do the hello world. There we go. And we'll do world. And we should be dandy. Okay. Now let's run our code, see if it works. And now we should be getting an error message, if I'm remembering correctly. Yep. One of the things between Maven and our IDEs is that they usually don't play very nice together. They play well together, but sometimes you just need to give one of the two a little nudge. The thing here is that, as you can see, my Maven or my project was compiled with Java 11, and Maven is trying to run it on Java 5. And that doesn't work. Now what we need to do is, on the right-hand side here, you'll see that we have a little Maven tab, and just re-import. Just press the little refresh button. That should do it. And if I run my application again, here we go. We have our hello world. Okay, so we have a running Maven project now. Now, the last thing I want to draw your attention to is this folder here, and that's a completely normal folder. The target folder, this is where all of my compiled classes will end up in. Okay, so you'll have generated sources here and classes. We'll just ignore this generated sources for now. But if I look into my classes, I have a BE folder and an infernal whale folder. And just like I have a package here, and then, oh, hold on. And in my infernal whale, I have my main.class. God damn it. Just like I have my main.java file here, once it's compiled, it becomes that main.class file. Okay. So you see that there is this synchronicity, or the same folder structure from our source main Java in our target classes. Okay. But the thing you need to remember is this target folder, it's basically the same as your out or your bin folder that you're used to working with. Okay. But now it's automated, and you don't really need to be in there for any reason, usually. Okay. But that's all I have to tell you about the Maven structure of your, or about a Maven project structure. And how we will be using Maven. Now, in the coming videos about JDBC, we will be adding some more stuff to the POM file and looking at what Maven actually does for our project and what it can bring to the table. Okay? Well, anyway, hope everybody's keeping safe and everybody's keeping cool because it's really bloody hot out here. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.